It's a Friday. Welcome to Weather to Watch. We have one system, and that's what you see pictured there with some severe weather possibilities and some wet weather. But we have really one and maybe two other weather systems that we need to discuss over the next week or so. Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We will start, as I often do, with the visible satellite loop for this Friday afternoon. And you can certainly see there's a weather system right here in the central and southern plains that is actually going to be the cause of several different types of weather. A little bit of hazard with that. We still see the flow around that huge occluded system up in eastern Canada with the clouds streaming through Michigan and through much of the Northeast and New England as well. And then some signs that the Northwest is going to become a little more active with waves of clouds coming in and a jet stream that will actually ultimately support a lot of wet weather there, not just for the next couple of days, but for the next week and probably beyond. We'll take a look at the 500 millibar flow. On top of that, we still have this weather system in the upper atmosphere here, about 18,000 feet up. The wind is always assumed to be to a good approximation flowing through these red lines. I didn't draw that very well at all. But this is the weather system here that is just each of the four corners that is drawing up moisture and is going to be responsible for some pretty good rains, maybe some severe weather. We'll outline that here in a second. And look how strong the jet stream winds are in the Pacific Northwest. Again, that's what's leading to this train of moisture, the Pineapple Express or the atmospheric river. These have various phrases or that have been attached to that phenomenon for a while. Perfectly normal for them. It moves around a lot, but it happens a lot more in the winter as we start getting into that season here a little more deeply. Here's the surface weather map. Big old high pressure sprawled from north of Lake Superior all the way down to Nashville, the center of which kind of hard to define, maybe around Chicago. Then at the surface, we have kind of a wavy pattern where we have a weak low pressure area, stationary front, another weak cool front. And this one in the northwest is a pretty strong cool front. You can just tell by the difference in cloud cover. Let's just stop for a moment and take a look at how the temperatures are going to really be laid out over the next couple of days. So if you see a green shading or a blue shading, it's below normal readings. So we are seeing a lot of that in the country. A little hot in the plains, at least hot for this time of year, but very cool in the east, in Chicago, up into Kansas on the northern end of this weather system. Very cool temperatures, and through a sliver of California and also Oregon and Washington. That's Saturday. Monday, the cool air kind of centers itself over the Carolinas, with Charlotte at 53 for a high on Monday. And let's say Pocatello, Idaho, only 50 degrees there. I think that's Pocatello. Where is that? Yeah, that is. Anyway, lots of signs of below and above normal temperatures. Mostly, I would say below on Monday. And then on Wednesday, 2 more days ahead, a lot of the east and the central plains in a cooler pattern for sure, with highs only in the 50s and 60s through much of this area. And even in the west, where it is above normal, it's not drastically above normal, only by a few degrees. Let's continue this logic and see what happens next week, Tuesday through Saturday. Basically, the western half of the country is forecast to be above normal, with special emphasis on California, whereas the temperature outlook for Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas is high confidence. The darker the blue or red, the more confidence in terms of percentage that the forecast is accurate. And that would be this darker purple is almost as much confidence as you can muster. I think that's 80% right there. So yeah, it looks pretty cool in Florida through that period. That's an average of that Tuesday through Saturday period. Well, much of the below normal temperatures can be attributed to the fact that it'll be raining and cloudy. So there's a very high correlation between all this accumulated precipitation over the next 5 days and where that cool patch was located. Same can be said for the Pacific Northwest, and we'll zoom in on some of these areas in a minute. Here's the radar late on this Friday afternoon. Just general showers, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder along I-40 there. Certainly some thunderstorms active in western Oklahoma, maybe northern Oklahoma, and even a few weather warnings for that. Flash flood and severe thunderstorm warnings down here south of the Midland, Odessa area. There is a flood watch in effect from Oklahoma City and Tulsa straight south to Dallas, and then further south to Houston, and then back towards San Antonio and Austin. If we look at what the latest Weather Prediction Center QPF forecast is for the next 5 days, quantitative precipitation forecast. Government loves acronyms. Anyway, kind of disappointing here in Springfield. We really could use, I'll show you the drought index in a minute. We're only going to get another maybe half inch out of this. maybe up to an inch in northwest Arkansas, but you can see the shading of red is 2. So that's showing up a lot in some of these areas, especially in far east Texas and much of Louisiana. Is this a flash flooding event? Maybe. There's a slight risk, at least a 15% chance. And this is just a progressive map, Friday to Saturday. So the rest of tonight and through tomorrow, this is where the flash flood guidance may be met within 25 miles of a point, but it's only a slight risk of that. So it's not really probably a terrible issue. And there's always a possibility that a thunderstorm is going to drop a lot of heavy rain in one spot, but it's not something that forecasters are terribly worried about. Here's that drought index that was updated yesterday morning. So, yeah, so here in Springfield, where I live, it's actually kind of severe. So the rain's all heading in this area, which is okay. Maybe this down here in Texas might get some relief. And there's some drought in parts of Washington state, and that'll help a lot to get that flow enhanced in that part of the world. And if you take a look at what's being forecast for the next 5 days up there, we're seeing if it's yellow, that is 4 and maybe even 5 to 6 inches. Again, we have what is called orographic help here. So in other words, the moisture flow is definite, and then it goes up, and you can just see the mountain chains by where the precipitation is being wrung out. So we have orographic lift aiding in the rising air and the production of rain, and also the mountains tend to stall that rain, and it just continues to fall. And of course, it would be snow as well. All these totals you see on here are assumed melted precipitation if it falls as snow. And if we go to the 3 to 7 day hazard, this is Monday through Friday of next week. A lot of the heavy rain will be focused in that area I just showed you, and also kind of moving up the east. Remember, we showed you the cool temperatures here and here, so that's one of the reasons why that's kind of creeping upward. Now, Tuesday through Saturday of next week, yeah, the rain is still up there in New England and Northeast, obviously here in the Northwest. But much of the country dries out finally. This weather system that's moving through the south leaves fairly high confidence of dry weather in New Mexico, Colorado, and through much of the central plains, even into parts of Missouri. And even beyond that, going all the way ahead to November 1st, which will be a week from tomorrow, there's still a slight to moderate risk of heavy rain in these areas here, including Seattle and Medford and those areas of Washington and Oregon State. Well, as I mentioned with the very first slide, on Friday, which is, of course, today, the remainder of today, from Lubbock to Odessa and points mostly east, but not quite to Dallas. There's a slight risk of severe weather tonight. San Antonio and Austin wouldn't be included in that. Again, that runs through 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. There's a severe thunderstorm watch in effect right around the Wichita Falls area, back to Lubbock, straight down to Odessa, and all the areas surrounding that area, much of West Texas, the Panhandle area as well. And then, as you saw on my opening graphic for Saturday, there is a slight risk that covers almost all of Louisiana, southern 2/3 of the state, including Baton Rouge. Houston is in this, and so is Austin. And even going into Sunday, there is just a lowest marginal risk of severe weather. And again, this entire thing, if you haven't gotten the idea already, is moving kind of east-southeast with time. Tropical storm Melissa, and even as I record this, it may be upgraded to a Hurricane Melissa, because it is showing a lot of organization here on the IR satellite loop. Here is Jamaica right here. It's kind of hard to make out the island. It's roughly like that. So the concern is, will this affect Jamaica? And I can show you what the latest spaghetti plots are. This is a combination of the GFS and also the hurricane tracking models. So it wants to take Melissa just about a little bit more to the northwest, and then due west, and then curve it. Almost a lot of consensus now on curving it back straight over the heart of Jamaica, and then eventually going over eastern Cuba and out into the southeast Bahamas. So this is a concern, and this thing is actually, I didn't put it up here, I should have, but it is forecast to become a major hurricane just south of Jamaica, and then make a turn and still be a pretty strong hurricane as it does so over Jamaica and Cuba. Other than that storm, there's nothing going on in the tropical Atlantic at all in October, and we're even starting to wind up October now. This particular storm is occurring here, and this is an area, the green is actually the higher probability when based on old data, but still, this is the area that has the warmest water still in combination with the weaker jet stream winds. In fact, its motion proves that it's not in any hurry to do anything, really. and eventually it will get swept up in the jet stream winds. But for now, it's just meandering around. So that could be bad news for Jamaica, because any slow-moving weather system in this part of the world, even if it were just a tropical storm or even just a tropical depression, would dump a lot of rains, and especially then in the mountains, there would be again that orographic lift that would lead to heavy rain. So you don't have to have a major hurricane for that to happen, but that doesn't help the situation any that it will end up being that probably. My little arrow moved, but Melissa's the last on the list here for named storms for this year. I have a feeling that may be the last one. Maybe we can get a Nestor or Nestor out of that, maybe. So the official adding up for the season is 12 on named storms, 4 hurricanes, probably soon to be 5, and possibly soon to be 4 major hurricanes if the forecasts for Melissa hold up. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.